right. Well, welcome once again, everyone, to the third UIC International Student Virtual Town Hall. My name is Anna Hoban. I'm an Assistant Director in the Office of International Services, and we are here today to talk about employment matters, and specifically employment matters in the context of COVID-19. So to welcome you and kick off our session today, we have Neil McCrillis, who is our Vice Provost for Global Engagement at UIC.
You could join us today, and I'm glad that I can join you as well today because I'm looking forward to hearing from my colleagues who are the experts in the field related to the topic of this town hall. But I did want you to know that at the very highest levels, myself and those that are even above me, all the way up to the Chancellor, Michael Amaritas, we're all very, very concerned and want to do everything we possibly can to support all of our students, faculty, and staff. And international students are a critical part of what makes UIC a truly globally engaged community, looking at international research, scholarship, innovation, and supporting all students, but definitely our international students is critical to achieving that mission, that vision that we have for ourselves as a globally engaged university. So I hope that what you hear today will be helpful, and I know that the Office of International Services staff and the Career Office are very eager to provide answers as much as they can. Keep in mind, of course, that it's a very fluid situation. It has been, and there's just a lot of uncertainties for everybody. But I hope that you'll reach out whenever you need to find answers, and that we can provide some support, some assistance, and some advice. So I look forward to joining you and listening to the rest of this town hall. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. McCrillis, and thank you so much for being here and supporting our community. I know you're a very busy person, so thank you for being here. Next, we have Jim Hammerschmidt, and he's our Associate Vice Provost for Global Engagement and the Executive Director of the Office of International Services. He is going to just kind of set the stage in the context for our topic, which again is employment in COVID-19.
Thanks, Hannah. As Anna said, this is the third of our town hall meetings. This one is particularly aimed at, or focused on, I should say, employment, what the job market is like based on COVID-19, as well as some of the immigration regulations surrounding optional practical training that a lot of you have submitted questions on. And so with that, let's kick off the town hall. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Hammerschmidt. So now I'd like to introduce our panelists. We're very, very lucky to have Jean Reardon here today. She is the Executive Director of Career Services at UIC, and she's going to be giving us that great insight to what employers are talking about in this current context. And we're also very lucky to have Megan Ward. She's our Director of International Student and Outreach Services in OIS. She's going to talk about perspectives on immigration, especially with OPT. What are we seeing with trends when it comes to applications with USCIS and approval? So we also have Stephen Stahl. He's our Assistant Director in the Office of International Student Services, and he is going to be moderating the written Q&A. So like I said, if you have questions, pop them in there if you didn't get a chance to submit during the registration process, and he'll do his best to either answer your question or refer you if needed. So with that, let's get started. Our first question is about on-campus employment. We had a lot of students sign on who are interested in looking for work on campus, maybe for the first time. So I'm wondering, what job opportunities exist for international students who would like to work on campus, either this summer or fall 2020? And our department's even hiring right now. What advice do you have for conducting an on-campus job search? And then there's another question about specifically campus housing jobs, whether international students can do those, like resident assistants or peer mentors.
So hi everyone. I think I can kick off the answer to that question. First, I do want to thank the Office of International Services for inviting me here today. It is a pleasure to connect with all of you. So let me talk just a little bit about student employment. So just typically in any given academic year, UIC has hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of on-campus student jobs, probably thousands really, of on-campus student jobs. While the hiring has probably slowed down a little bit right now just because there aren't any staff operations happening on campus, I've seen a number of jobs that have come through our UIC career site. So places are still hiring, and they're doing some hiring now for the fall, which is really important information as well. So I think that the best thing to do there really would be to keep an eye on uiccareers.com because there's really going to be your one-stop shop for finding any employment on campus. Now, that's not to say that there aren't some other word-of-mouth opportunities that exist. So I think that you should talk to people on campus. You should let people know that you're interested in working on campus, because I think there's a little bit of a hidden job market there that that students don't always know about. I think that departments also do use flyers on campus as well. So once there's more traffic on campus, you may see some of those things popping up. If you receive regular emails or newsletters from various departments on campus or areas on campus, pay attention to those, read those as well. We have a newsletter in Career Services that goes out twice a week, and often we'll highlight it. In particular, if we have a lot of jobs that are posted that week, we'll go ahead and highlight those jobs and give you a link that'll take you right to UIC Careers to apply. So there definitely are opportunities. There's less than there would be during a regular academic year. Plus, we're heading into the summer, so things are a little slower. But to definitely keep on that if you are interested in working on campus. And you can also call the Student Employment Office or email the Student Employment Office as well, because all of those staff are available and on duty to answer any questions that you have about applying.
Great. I think that's a good distinction between career services and student employment. I think some students mix those two up and think, oh, I want a job, I'll go to career services. But if it's an on-campus job, that would be student employment, correct?
Right. We work in tandem. I mean, so I do oversee student employment as well. So it's designed that way sort of on purpose so that we can all sort of contribute to that conversation. But I think the first office that I would go to in terms of applying and seeing what opportunities are available would be the Student Employment Office, for sure.
Great. Megan, would you like to add anything to that question?
Yeah, I will get into sort of the immigration regulations surrounding on-campus employment, but let me just say we do get questions from students surrounding, can I work for campus housing? Can I be a resident assistant? Could I be a peer mentor? Those types of questions. It really comes down to the regulations surrounding on-campus employment and the limitation of working 20 hours per week while school is in session. That can sometimes limit you in terms of being able to take campus housing jobs because they do require more hours in those positions. So if you talk to campus housing and they have sort of part-time RA type positions, you are more than welcome to take those positions as they are considered on-campus positions.
Okay, well, and that's a great segue into the next question, talking about the hours per week. On-campus employment, what do international students need to know regarding the immigration regulations surrounding on-campus employment? When is a student eligible for on-campus employment? And do on-campus jobs have to be related to their field of study? How many hours can international students work? And can on-campus jobs be done online from outside the United States? Lots of stuff.
Sure. So many great questions. So let's see. Let me break this down. So what do you need to know about the immigration regulations surrounding on-campus employment? So any student at UIC where we have issued your I-20 and your I-20 list, the University of Illinois at Chicago, are eligible to work on our campus. The regulation for on-campus employment states that while school is in session, you are only eligible to work 20 hours or less during official school breaks. So that includes the winter break, the spring break, and summer. You are eligible to work full-time. So that could be any sort of combination of employment and up to a full-time workload. When is the student eligible? I think I already got that. So any student that's a full-time student in status, you're eligible to work on campus. On-campus employment jobs do not have to be related to your field of study. So you could be a mechanical engineering student, and you could be working for Starbucks. That happens to be on our campus. And I do want to mention that as long as the position is on our campus and you are working in service to UIC students, then that is considered an on-campus employment job, even if you are not being paid by UIC. So anyone that contracts with the university and is on our campus, you are eligible to work in an on-campus position. I addressed how many hours a week a student can work, and can on-campus jobs be done online. In this current climate, SCVP and the Department of Homeland Security have provided guidance to us that if your on-campus job can be done in a remote sort of way while we are dealing with COVID-19, you are eligible to do that job off campus, and you can do that remotely. So I kind of was thinking about an example, and maybe you work for the library, and maybe you enter data for the library. And that's something that could easily be done from home and doesn't have to be done in the library. You could be reassigned to do that virtually, and during this time that is acceptable for immigration. Yeah, so that's it.
Great. And to put a finer point on it, the remote work, does that apply to in the United States and outside the U.S.?
Correct.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So the next question is about job searching for students who are graduating. So this is for you, Jean. What advice do you have for international students who are graduating this spring and summer 2020 and beginning or currently in their full-time job search? How has COVID-19 changed the job search process for graduates? And is there anything a student can do to increase their chances of getting an interview or landing a job?
Okay, yeah, that's a big question. So if it's okay, I think that I might back up a little bit on that question and just maybe give you a sense of sort of where we're at right now in terms of hiring and what things sort of look like. The problem is there's a lot of information out there right now about what hiring looks like, and how to get a job, how to increase your chances. But it's important to know that, and there's a lot of data, and I'd like to share some of that data with you today. But the truth is, no one really knows yet what's going to happen. I think we are still at the beginning of this process of figuring out how COVID is going to change the hiring landscape. Where did I go? Oh, sorry. All of a sudden, everything disappeared for a second. But I'm back. So I'd like to share a little bit of that with you. So there's a difference there's a difference between the information that you're seeing versus what employers' hiring practices right now are and what they anticipate that hiring to look like versus which employers are revoking offers. So I think it's really important to distinguish between that. I have some information about both, but for students who have already been made some offers, and that's maybe industry specific to some degree, potentially business students, students in those fields, engineering students may have already been made some offers, both for internships and full-time work. So we're kind of keeping an eye on which organizations and companies are pulling those offers, revoking those offers, but we're also asking employers what their hiring intentions will be for the fall. So those might be some other industries as well, or folks that have not completed their hiring early, as some industries do, if that makes sense. So we did a survey actually of employers that work with us in UIC pretty extensively. We had some good news from that. It was encouraging news from that. So we had 70% of the employers that we talked to were still planning on hiring interns for this summer. So they were still planning on sort of going ahead with those offers and those opportunities. So 30% of them said we're just not going to have interns at all this year. 75% of the employers we talked to had still some plans to hire or to continue with their hires for post-graduation. So that's actually pretty good news. You know, again, these are employers who they don't have it necessarily all figured out, but they know that they're going to have a number of opportunities that they are going to have to fill, and they're going to move forward with those. So that's good. A lot of our employers want to connect with students online. So they are looking for opportunities to participate in things like virtual career fairs and some online employer sessions, which our department is currently working on getting those to students, because we know we did have to cancel 2 job fairs, one in March and one in May, that would have been in-person fairs that would have allowed you to have the opportunity to network with employers in person. But we are diligently working to try to replicate a lot of those experiences. So stay tuned for that. That's good. The other issue sort of that we're seeing is that we have some recent alums who have been furloughed or who have been just let go because of downsizing in their companies. So that's something I think we didn't think about at first. You know, not only are you competing now against folks who are graduating right along with you, but you're also competing against people who may be just a couple years out in sort of semi-entry level jobs that now, you know, are going to be on the market again because they've lost their position. So that's just some local data for you. We also look at data related to the National Association of Colleges and Employers. So we compare the information that we have with other information. It's around the same. A lot of that data has to do with who's revoking offers. So here's a different set of data for you. About 50% of employers are considering revoking their full-time offers for this fall, for the summer and the fall, which is a little less encouraging. About 20% of employers are most likely going to revoke their summer internship offers. But the good news is that 80% of those employers surveyed are looking for ways to modify their internships. So one, they might be pushing that internship out a little bit. So maybe instead of a May or June start, they're looking at a late June or early July start instead. And many employers are looking to move their internship opportunities virtually as well. So you wouldn't necessarily be in the department, in the office, but they're looking for ways to give interns projects and collaborate just as all of us are doing now from a virtual space. So that's just some background that I think is sort of important to know. In terms of advice about how to keep yourself in the loop and how to keep yourself marketable is, you know, I think it's really important now to focus on building your network and paying attention to things like LinkedIn. LinkedIn is so important in terms of connecting with the companies that you want to connect with, in terms of connecting with your fellow students, your alumni, and people who have just gone just right before you, you know, to connect with people who are working in the fields that you want to be in. For example, if there's a company that you've sort of had your sights set on, search LinkedIn and find other UIC grads who are working there and find a way to connect with them. You know, find a way to reach out to employers and ask recruiters, ask if you can do an informational interview. We have an entire webinar actually on a career services website that's entirely focused and devoted to online and virtual networking. So definitely check it out. It's not super long. And there's also a web chat like this that we have recorded, so you can pick up some tips from that. I would definitely suggest that you do that. Let's see, there's other types of, you know, other things you can do too is you want to make sure that all your materials are good to go, interviewing skills are up to par. Having an opportunity to meet with or talk to one of the people in the career services office, or you can also connect with the engineering career services office or the business career services office, depending on your major. And you can reach out to professionals there and practice doing virtual interviewing, which is the perfect time to do it right now while we're all here anyway. Because these are skills that are a little trickier, obviously, than interviewing in person, because there's a lot of environmental things that you have to kind of prepare for. So even today, before I sat down, I realized that I needed to turn my computer because I had way too much stuff in the background, and I wanted there to be less things in the background. so that you would just be able to focus on what I was saying as opposed to all of the, my cluttered kitchen or something like that. So these are the kinds of things that a career advisor can work through with you so that you feel comfortable when you get online and all you have to do is focus on what you have to say and answering the recruiter's question. So, sorry, that was a really long answer to that question. Please let me know if I missed something or if you have some further questions. But yeah, I think that the reality of it is this is going to be a challenge. Just across the board, I think it's important for students to be flexible, to have an open mind also when you're on the job search. You may not find yourself in exactly where you thought you were going to be, but sometimes it's important to just be somewhere where you're working and making a difference and learning and developing, even if it wasn't exactly what you thought in the first place. So I think that level of creativity and flexibility is going to be absolutely essential.
Thank you so much. So many good tips there and good advice. Your focus, the office is obviously focusing on data, talking to employers, hearing the trends. That's really, really interesting. I am someone who likes data, so that's very interesting to hear. I think your tips about LinkedIn are, people have heard that before. I was at a career alumni panel earlier in the spring with some alumni from engineering, and there was one alumni there who spoke extensively about LinkedIn and how important that was in her job search. So that hasn't changed. But loved your tips about the virtual interviewing. Even from personal experience doing this a third time, I'm so much more comfortable now, and it takes practice. So that's a really wonderful tip. Thank you.
Thank you. It really is. This is out of our comfort zone, all of us. No one likes to look at themselves on a screen, and you get very self-conscious about those things. So like anything that a career advisor can do to help you sort of find that comfort level with it, I truly will make a big difference.
Yeah. So are you saying that the advisors in your office are actually doing this? They're doing like virtual interview practice?
Oh, absolutely. We're employing the same. Yeah, it's just all of our services are completely replicated online. So, as an advisor might sit with you and run some questions and practice some answers to interview questions in person, we can do practice interviews virtually. So it just ends up being virtual interview practice just by the nature. They can give you some great tips. That's very personalized tips for how you are presenting yourself online.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, I feel like we could keep talking all day, but I'm going to move on to some of the other questions. We will just kind of shift gears a little bit and talk about the immigration side of job searching for that full-time after graduation position. And that's going to bring up optional practical training for F1 students, OPT. So this question is for Megan. We're going to have a nice long conversation here. What do international students need to know about optional practical training? What is the process and timeline for application? Does the job have to be related to their field of study? And when can they work? How many hours per week can they work? Does the job have to be paid? And how long does OPT last?
Okay, great. I have my cheat sheet here because I want to make sure we get all these great questions answered. So what do you need to know about optional practical training? So as it denotes, optional practical training means it's optional. You do not have to engage in OPT. If you don't wish to, I would say that about 98% of our students do end up engaging in optional practical training. It's popular, so most of you do. It is training that must be done within your field of study. And you have questions surrounding this, and we are happy to walk through with you, our advisors, whether or not a position, although we're not the experts, to get a general sense of whether or not that type of position would be within your field of study, but just make sure that it is. The timeline for applying for OPT. So you can apply up to 3 months in advance of your graduation. You have to, your program end date, let me just put it that way, not the graduation ceremony. You are required to attend an OPT workshop. We offer OPT workshops, and we're doing that virtually once or twice a month. That process goes through with you exactly how to apply for OPT. We go through the timeline, all of those sorts of things. So if you apply, it's taking about 3 to 5 months for OPT applications to be processed. So the earlier you can apply, the better. The regulation on this is that for non-STEM eligible OPT, you are eligible for 12 months full-time employment following completion of your program. It does have to be related to your field of study. So in terms of hours per week, it has to be at least 20 hours or more. That is what is defined as full-time in the eyes of immigration. So you just have to make sure that you do maintain full-time employment during your post-completion OPT. That is a time when you switch from doing full-time academic work to full-time employment. You have 90 days from the date that your employment starts in order to find a job. So we call that 90 days of unemployment for your 12-month OPT. And then you have additional time, 120 days for STEM OPT. So you have a little bit more. You have 1 extra month there if you are going to engage in STEM OPT in order to find a job. That is cumulative. So if for some reason you find a job, then you lose the job, you pick up another job, you would only have, maybe 15 days here, 15 days there, and it all sort of adds up to the 90 days or the additional time that you would get for STEM OPT. And the job does not have to be paid. It can be sort of more volunteer type work. You could be paid. The most important thing to remember is that you are working within your field of study and that you are working full time, but the job does not have to be paid. That change in the regulation came sort of at a similar time when there were fluctuations in the economy and students were having difficulties finding paid jobs. Lots of things going on during the Asian economic crisis. Different things have come up along throughout the years where immigration had to make some adjustments to that, where students were, not able to find jobs, in their home countries. So therefore, more students wanted to do OPT here, and there were also sort of economic issues here. So the change was made so that to allow for all different types of pay and positions to be allowed under OPT. And so as I said, OPT lasts for 12 months. It can be extended if you are in a STEM field, so science, technology, engineering, or math. U.S. Immigration does have what is called the zip code list. So that's a Department of Education designation for the programs that are considered STEM fields. And if you fall in one of those fields or your program is attached to one of those STEM eligible zip codes, you would be eligible to apply for the 24-month extension of your OPT time after your 12-month for a total of 3 years. After that, your OPT cannot be extended. However, every higher degree level you do complete, you can do your OPT again. So you could potentially do another 12 months and you could do STEM OPT again as well. So that gives just sort of some generals about OPT.
Great, thank you. And again, we could probably go on much longer talking about details of OPT. I think our OPT workshop that Megan mentioned is like 2 hours long. So it's a dense topic, but our advisors are very knowledgeable and skilled in that area and answer questions all day, every day about how OPT works. So we're definitely here to assist in that matter. But Megan, the next question is about OPT during COVID-19. So just has the government changed any immigration regulations surrounding OPT as a result of the current crisis, COVID-19? Can OPT authorized jobs be completed online? And can they be completed online from outside the U.S.? And that limits on unemployment days you were talking about, has that changed at all during COVID-19?
Great questions again. So no regulatory changes have occurred, just so everyone knows. In order for an official regulatory change to occur, that actually requires the government to get involved. And as many of you know, governments are bureaucracies and all of that takes a lot of time. Fortunately, we have received quite a bit of guidance from USCIS, United States Citizenship and Immigration Services, from the Department of State, from Department of Homeland Security, from the Student Exchange Visitor Program, regarding sort of the different issues that have been coming up pertaining to COVID-19 and how it impacts OPT. So the answer is no, none of the regulations regarding OPT have changed. However, we did receive guidance that OPT can be completed from outside the United States. However, you cannot apply for OPT outside the United States. So in order to apply, you would need to be here in the US to initiate your application. If you're currently on OPT and you are in a position that has allowed you to work remotely, immigration is okay if remote is here in Chicago or if it's, in your home city, in your home country. So that is one positive sort of change that SCVP has come out with due to COVID-19. The limit on unemployment days, I know this is a big issue, and I can empathize with everyone being concerned about this issue because there is a lot of unemployment right now. I think we have some of the highest levels of unemployment that we've seen for many, many years. So I definitely hear your concern about this. Unfortunately, U.S. Immigration, the Student Exchange Visitor Program, has not offered us any guidance about potentially increasing the number of unemployment days. So currently they do stand at the 90 and 120 for STEM OPT. There has been no change there, unfortunately.
Yeah, that is a tough one because we are facing so much unemployment. Do you know, is there a difference between someone who's been laid off, is officially unemployed, and someone who's been furloughed? Has the immigration come out to distinguish between those two situations?
That's a great question. So there is definitely a difference between being unemployed and being furloughed. So immigration, I'm not aware of any direct communication about this, but just in terms of the definitions of both of those. So being unemployed is unemployed. So you're not currently working. You have no connection to that employer anymore. Furlough means that it's a temporary amount of time that a position has been put on hold, essentially, until the situation with the company, the institution, changes or improves. So you are still considered an employee of that company. And as far as I know, and I do believe actually there has been some in the question and answer on Study in the States. The Student Exchange Visitor Program has a website called Study in the States, and they have an FAQ there and other information. If it's not in the FAQ, it's in the general information about employment. They have addressed that furloughed employees are considered still employees, and you would not be accruing unemployment time during the time that you are furloughed. So that's a great question.
Yeah, thanks. And in just a minute, I'll find that link to the resource Megan was mentioning, the Study in the States, and I'll drop that in the chat to all participants so you can go and take a look. That's a really helpful hearing from immigration directly on some of these changes.
Yeah.
So,
and the other thing I would say, Anna, is that all of this is obviously subject to change. So if at some point if this were to go on for a very long time, all of that could change, and immigration could say, even if you are furloughed and you're not reporting to a job, maybe some additional action would need to be taken. But until they actually come out and tell us that that needs to be done, we do not have any information that your unemployment time would be accruing currently while you are furloughed.
Great. That's really helpful clarification. The next question is about changing plans. So COVID-19 has caused many people to change their plans. For example, some international students have already applied for OPT, maybe back in February or January, planning on a May graduation. But they find that they can no longer complete their degree as planned. What should these students do if they now need to extend their program to do additional studies and their I-20, but have an OPT EAD, the OPT card, in hand or processing with USCIS?
So, this comes up quite frequently this issue where we have to sort of advise you through the process of needing additional time towards your program. I really, really highly recommend that if you are unsure if you are going to finish your program, that you do not apply for OPT until you know for sure that you're going to finish your program. You can apply for OPT up to 90 days in advance of your program end date, but you can also apply for OPT during your 60-day grace period. So if you find out that you will not be completing your program, then you still have time. If you think that you will not be completing your program, but then you find out that you will, you still have time within your 60-day grace period to apply for OPT. The reason that I advise you not to rush on that process if there is any doubt in your mind that you will graduate is from a technological perspective, when we are authorizing OPT, we have to shorten your program end date to the date that your department has indicated to us will be your program end date. Once we shorten that date in order to recommend you OPT, we cannot extend that. So then it becomes very tricky. You become in an out of status sort of position because the only way for me to get more time on your I-20 and your status for you to say, you don't finish your program in spring, you need until fall. The only way for me to do that is for you to go through what's called a reinstatement of status. Reinstatements are taking a considerable amount of time right now, and many students are losing their opportunity to engage in OPT because you can't start the process of applying until your reinstatement is approved. So that gets very, very tricky. So I would just hold off if you are unsure. If you've already applied for OPT and you find out you will not be graduating, you can cancel your OPT application as long as all of the connections link up. So as long as immigration is notified that you wish to cancel your application prior to the application being approved, you can cancel the application. And we have had some success with getting applications canceled. Once you apply for OPT and you're approved, it's just important to note that you can't take it back. So it's either a use it or lose it type of situation. So once you're approved, you're going to start going into your time for employment, and you can't make that up. So you can't say, let me put this on hold, and get the 12 months back, 6 months from now. So that's the situation for a student who has applied, but then during the pending time finds out they're not going to complete their program in the day we have indicated to immigration that you will complete your program. Now, for those of you who do not complete your program and you're already approved for OPT, please note that you cannot use that OPT because we have recommended you to immigration for what is called post-completion OPT. So that means that you cannot start your OPT until you actually finish your program. And that's okay, but what you have to do is you have to just hold on to your EAD, hold on to the employment until you finish your program, and then you are approved. So once you finish your program, you can start to do your OPT. I will caution you though, you do have to report employment within 90 days of the start date on your EAD card, and most semesters go longer than 90 days. So there is a little bit of a quandary there with how we report your employment to stop that 90-day clock if you're not going to begin your employment until you complete your program, and that's outside of the 90 days. So I don't want to get too technical here. We can help you through these issues, but it is very, very important that you talk to us if you are facing a situation where you don't think you are going to complete your program, so that we can advise you through the best way to proceed with applying for OPT. I know this is very important. It's an important benefit for everyone, and we want to make sure that anyone who's eligible for it gets it. So in our office, we are here to advise you through that process to ensure that you receive that benefit if you are eligible for it. So please speak to our advisors, and we're happy to walk you through the best course of action given your particular situation.
Yeah, thank you. It's complicated as you've laid out all of the different variables in that type of situation. So So yeah, the earlier students can connect with us, the more options that we will be able to present to you and explain to you. It's definitely a contact us as early as possible situation, for sure.
Correct.
Well, great.
And
well,
cases
that kind of
come to
leads
myself.
Go ahead.
No, I was just saying the complicated cases come to my desk where Dr. Hammerschmidt. We can definitely help you through it, but we just need to know what's going on. So, yeah.
Yeah, so you're in very, very good and experienced hands there. Yeah, so that kind of leads into the next question about OPT processing. So we all know the stay-at-home order. We know OIS staff are working remotely. How is OIS handling OPT requests and I-20 issuance during the stay-at-home order? How can an international student get guidance from an advisor, and how can they submit their request documents and receive that printed I-20? And have processing times changed? How long do they have to wait?
Great. So yeah, I mean, just like Jean mentioned, all of our operations have moved online. Pretty much everything we could do in the office regarding case processing and advising, we're able to do remotely now. So instead of dropping off your OPT applications or receiving advising while coming in for open advising or during our office hours, you're going to submit your OPT applications through PDF. We do have form fillable PDFs that you can use if you're not able to print out the applications and sign them. You'll submit your OPT application through the OIS email, ois@uic.edu. Typically, kind of the way this starts is a student will email and say, I'm interested in applying for OPT. Can you advise me through the process? So then the email goes to an advisor to advise you virtually or through email, whatever your preference is. And then once you sort of get that advice, you've attended an OPT workshop, then the next thing we expect to see is your actual application for processing. So once you submit the application through the email, there is normally an up to 5 business day processing time. It usually doesn't take us that long, just kind of depends on workloads during different times of the year. And so once that processing is complete, an I-20 is produced that you have to send with your OPT application along with all of the other documents that are explained to you by the coordinator in your OPT workshop, and we will mail that out to you. So the advisor processes the case. They send you an email and say, we've finished the processing of your I-20 for OPT. How would you like to receive the I-20? Via express mail or via regular mail? You email us back, you indicate what type of mailing you would like. It's express mail, you set the express mail up. And the OPT I-20 goes out to you via mail and will come into your mailbox, and you can mail off your OPT application. Let's see. Yeah, so I think that addresses everything in that question.
Yeah, it does. I hear from my colleagues who are on the student advising team, and I'm just so thoroughly impressed by how they're working through the increase in requests and really, really getting everybody what they need in their normal processing time. So I think people can rest assured there that their questions are being seen and answered on a pretty timely basis. So good, big ups to the student advising team for sure.
Yeah.
The next one, and someone asked this in the Q&A as well, it's about Social Security Administration and SSN. So Social Security Administration offices are currently closed across the U.S. Why is this important to know for international students who may be looking for work or otherwise in need of a Social Security number or an SSN?
Sure. I mean, this is very important because to accept employment and to start working for a U.S. employer, you do have to have a Social Security number. So obviously that creates problems in order to apply for a new Social Security number. There has been information that Social Security is accepting some types of requests if you call them or virtually, replacement Social Security cards, other types of issues, those are being handled virtually, remotely. Brand new Social Security number card requests, you still have to go into the office for that. So you will have to wait until the Social Security office reopens. As soon as we have that information about when that might be, we will definitely pass that on to you. If you're working at UIC, I do want to give you a little relief in that you're working on campus. or if you are working on OPT and you're working at UIC via OPT, most people when you're at the OPT stage already have a social security number because you've worked on campus either at UIC or somewhere else. But for those who are still in their program working on campus, UIC assigns something to you called a temporary control number that you can get your payroll started with that temporary control number. And then once the Social Security office reopens, you can apply for your Social Security number, and then you would need to provide that number to your department so they can switch that out for your TCN. But you can get the process started for payroll to work on campus.
All right. Before we shift away, Megan, I'm going to ask one. I'm seeing this in the Q&A, one clarifying question. It's about OPT and doing OPT multiple times. So someone was asking if they do OPT at the PhD level, complete that, maybe STEM, it's 3 years. Can they do a second PhD, apply for OPT and STEM a second time at the same degree level?
No, it has to be a higher degree level. So if you do a bachelor's degree and you're in a STEM field, you could do 3 years of STEM. Then you could move on to a master's, and if it's a STEM field, you could do 3 years of STEM. You could move on to a PhD, and if it's a STEM field, you could do 3 years of STEM. Yeah, so it has to be higher degree level. So it's not, if you do 2 PhDs, you would be eligible for 2-3 years of STEM. That would be the case. Higher degree level.
Thank you for that clarification.
Sure.
Yeah, gotta go, keep going up.
Yeah.
Great. So that is the end of our, the pre-moderated questions. I think, Jean, just to pull you back in, can you just reiterate for the attendees how international students can connect with your office if they have a specific question that wasn't answered here today or want additional help? How do they get in touch with you?
Absolutely. If it's okay, I also want to list more resources that I didn't list before, just to kind of keep some things in mind. When we were talking earlier about the employers and the kinds of employers who are still hiring, I do want to throw out there that there are some fields right now that are really actively hiring. So if you think about supply chain organizations, shipping companies and organizations, healthcare, booming right now, online learning companies, anyone involved in remote communications, so like Zoom and WebEx and Skype and all of those different kinds of companies. So I think when you're thinking about sort of being creative about where you land, I think it's important to think about how your skills and qualifications can be sold, packaged in such a way where you can sell yourself for some of these other kinds of opportunities, which again, may not have been your first thought, but you have to think in terms of industries. Say you have a background in finance or in accounting. There are finance professionals and accounting professionals that would work in any company, really in every single solitary industry. You have to kind of, again, sort of think outside the box a little bit, think a little bit more creatively. UIC Careers is also a great resource for full-time employment. And we are getting things posted there, like I said, not just on campus, but off campus full-time every single day. And it just does our hearts good to see those listings continue to come in. So keep that in mind. Also, again, it doesn't hurt sometimes just to do a little research. For example, in advance of speaking with you today, I did a little poking around to see what kinds of cool opportunities existed for students right now. And I ran across something that I had never heard of. It's called Think Chicago. And Think Chicago is an organization that right now are holding a lot of virtual events, and they work with students across the Chicago area to connect to tech companies. And I thought that was really cool. I had never heard of that. So sometimes you can just do a little research and stumble upon some things. They actually have an online 2020 resume book that you can add your resume to, and they're sort of helping the sort of virtual recruiting effort happening in the city right now. So, again.
Can you repeat the name of that?
It's called Think Chicago. And just Google Think Chicago 2020 resume book, and all that information can pop right up. So that's something I'm definitely going to share in our next newsletter, our next virtual career newsletter. So again, watch that, because this is what we're doing. We're trying to sort of find these sort of niche cool opportunities, some organizations that are sort of getting in the mix with us and sort of working with organizations and companies to help identify opportunities that are there and try to help connect new professionals to those opportunities. So that's just one example right there. There are multiple resources on campus that you can use. Obviously, all students are welcome to use the Career Services Office. You can call our main line that is going to an actual human at home right now. And you can also just email us and you can ask to set up an appointment with any of our advisors. And again, we handle all majors, all fields, graduate students. If you think you have a unique situation and we haven't heard it before, we probably have. It's okay. So come on and have a discussion with us. There are also some other great professionals on campus as well. So the Engineering Career Center meets and will do the same things that we're doing in career services, but they work exclusively with engineering students. So if you are an engineering student, you're welcome to come see us. I would definitely urge you to talk to the folks in Engineering Career Services. And they can be reached at ecc.uic.edu. You can email them to make an appointment. And you can also connect with the Business Career Center as well. There's a whole group of amazing professionals there, again, working exclusively with undergraduate and graduate students in the business program. So take advantage of all the resources. These two offices may have some special programs and may be doing some things particularly geared towards the students in those majors, in your major. So you definitely want to connect with them as well.
Awesome. Yeah, and I put a couple of the things you've mentioned in the chat box over here, the Think Chicago. So folks can get those. All right, Megan, is there anything you would like to share about how folks can get in touch with OIS?
Yeah, so just to mention again, we're available during our normal business hours, Monday through Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. for virtual advising, and we're taking all types of case paperwork. So please keep it coming through the OIS email, and we will be addressing your questions just as soon as we can. I also wanted to mention that I know there were many, many questions that were presented for the participant survey for this town hall, and not all of them have been addressed pertaining to internships and things like that. So I just wanted to let you know that more information will be coming out, and we will provide that to you. We see everything that you send us, and we will be responding to everything that comes in very soon. So we are aware of all of the questions that have been asked. So thank you very much for participating, and I hope you found this very helpful.
Yeah, thank you. And on that note, I just opened up a poll asking you how helpful was today's session. So let us know, give us a little feedback in the poll over here. And with that, I think I'll give the panelists just a moment to scroll through the Q&A that has been posted. A lot of questions have been answered privately or by Stephen through the written response. A few of them we've already been able to address in the questions to the panelists, but I'll just give you a second to scan through to see if there's anything, panelists, you would like to address before we sign off for today. Okay. Well, with that silence, I will take it as we have addressed all the questions. And
hey, Anna,
yeah.
Just real quick, I did see one question, and when we talked about the Social Security situation. So there is a form that students need to fill out. It was asked here in the Q&A. It's a form that our office fills out as well as the department fills out. So if you want to go ahead and submit that form to us, we are happy to go ahead and put the signatures on there so that when Social Security office opens, ready to go, or you can wait until you know for sure that the Social Security office is open, and we would be happy to complete that form for you. So I just wanted to make sure that you're aware of that.
Yeah, that's a good point. So students can be completely ready to go. I think that's really good advice. All right. Well, with that, I want to special thanks to our panelists, Jean Reardon for being here representing UIC Career Services. Thank you so much for your time and expertise. Megan, thank you so much for your expertise and sharing everything that you know about OPT and on-campus employment. Also, thank you to Dr. Hammerschmidt. Thank you. And Dr. McCrillis for being here to support our community. And Stephen, thank you for answering all the Q&As, our silent contributor over there. Thank you so much. We hope everyone is well. Take good care. Please reach out to us in OIS if you have any questions that weren't answered here today, any concerns. We want to hear how you're doing. So please let us know. If we don't know the answer, we can refer and connect you to the folks that do. And yeah, stay safe, stay healthy, and we will see you all in the next virtual town hall. We're going to be putting one together about health and wellness, answering some questions about insurance and campus care, which I know are on people's minds as well. I put in the chat a link to our YouTube channel where the 2 previous town hall recordings are now up and available for viewing. So you can check out immigration and travel and financial matters as well. So again, take care, and we will see you all hopefully next week.